This is Dena, welcome to the Den. Well, it was about a year ago that I covered Mortal Kombat the movie, and it was a blast, because I love that movie, I really do. I think it's at least the best live-action video game adaptation there is, or at least the best one I've seen. And I realize that the bar for that is set very low, but it is what it is. And also it gave me an excuse to talk about the first couple games, which was fun. I'm really not a hardcore Mortal Kombat fan in general, but I pretty much was back then, so it was a nice bit of nostalgia for me. I was even going to cover Mortal Kombat Annihilation briefly, but when I watched it again to refresh my memory on it, I just had too much to say to fit into a brief little segment like that. And now that it's been a year, I figured it was time I talked about this disgrace of a sequel. Honestly, I'm gonna have so many complaints about this movie that I better just jump into it and hit on things as they happen.
How hollow those words sound now.
Yeah, I'd give this movie credit for having an awesome opening sequence if it wasn't the exact same one from the first movie, except that the title becomes Annihilation at the end and the transition with the logo is different. Yeah, right away you can tell they don't give two fucks. Not even a full minute in and they're already cutting corners.
Mortal Kombat is not about death.
After a quick recap of the first movie, it picks up where the last one left off. Sort of. I don't think I mentioned this the first time around, but I actually love how the first movie ended so abruptly. They've won the tournament and they're celebrating, but then Shao Kahn shows up, spouts a couple catchphrases from the games in Frank Welker's Dr. Claw voice. Raiden's all, "I don't think so." And it just goes full-on Power Rangers for a second, and then it cuts to credits. It's so cheesy, but it still makes me all excited. I love it. I guess it's not too surprising that they reshot that scene for the sequel. I mean, where would you really go from there? But unfortunately, I gotta point out something I'm already noticing. Last time I gushed about how beautiful the backgrounds looked. I mean, sometimes there was green screen involved, but for the most part the backgrounds looked great because the crew actually went on location to these cool looking places to film. But in this scene, the green screen is so painfully obvious. Again, we're only like 2 minutes in. To be fair, this improves later on, but I can't believe they allowed the movie to open looking like this. Another problem with this movie is that nearly all of the actors from the first one didn't return. In fact, the only ones who did return are Liu Kang and Katana, and one other guy who I'll mention when he shows up. It's tempting to make a joke about that, like no one wanted to be in it after reading the script. But the case with most of them is actually just a scheduling conflict. They were already involved with other movies and just couldn't do it. This is why when they know they're making a franchise instead of just one movie, they have the actors sign contracts stating that they will return for the sequels. Why the hell didn't they do that here? I guess maybe back then franchises like this were less common, so they just didn't think ahead. So it's basically the other way around. The actors didn't choose not to return because the movie was bad, but their absence definitely hurts the movie and contributes to how bad it turns out. And it's not even that these new actors are bad, it's just having these characters suddenly played by different actors is jarring. That said, there is one exception, and that's Linden Ashby, the actor who originally played Johnny Cage.
I'm gonna get a gun, and I'm gonna shoot myself for being in your movie!
Though I'll admit that this guy looks enough like him that I almost don't notice. Also, his shades regenerated. Suddenly, oh my god, I have to take a break from criticizing and focus on the story for a bit, or I really am gonna be here all day. This movie's throwing so much bad shit at me at once I can't even keep up. Anyway, suddenly Motaro shows up along with a couple members of the Rainbow Ninja Squad. Namely Ermac and Rain, along with Shiva, must hold back for now, and finally Shao Kahn himself.
The earth was created in 6 days, so too shall it be destroyed!
Not voiced by Frank Welker, but that's okay.
We pathetic fools.
I love Frank Welker, but he maybe wasn't the best choice. So Liu asks Raiden why the portal is open if they won the tournament.
What closes can also open again.
What is that supposed to mean?
Good question. And here comes Sindel. And here's another problem with this movie. It came out after Mortal Kombat 3, which had 18 characters in it. This movie tries to cram in as many of them as possible. Oh god, I can't hold back anymore. The plot is gonna have to wait. Good god, these costumes look stupid. I mean, okay, most of these are accurate to the games. These appear to be anyway. So I can't accuse them of not doing their homework, but Sindel is wearing a spandex leotard. Come on. The thing about the first Mortal Kombat game is that generally they took a very minimalist approach to the costumes. They just basically dress how martial artists tend to dress. Lots of loose clothing in plain black and white with little pops of color here and there, with Liu Kang and Johnny Cage looking like Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme respectively. And then there's Sonya, who looks like an aerobics instructor, but the outfit is still relatively plain and practical. Still, in the first movie, they were not 100% beholden to accuracy to the point where it would look weird or cheesy in real life. Again, Sonya's a good example. For Mortal Kombat 2 and beyond, the developers took a more colorful and semi-comic bookish approach, which looks fine in a video game. Unfortunately, this movie tried to pick visual accuracy over aesthetics, and the result has a good chunk of our main villains looking like cosplayers. I mean, look at Katana, who instead of wearing blue spandex is wearing black leggings and boots with a black leather top. I mean, you could complain about the impracticality of fighting in tight leather, but at least leather looks good in live action. Anyway, Katana reveals that Sindel is her mother, who is supposed to be dead. I've heard people complain about how they look about the same age, but if Sindel is supposed to be an undead immortal, it makes sense for her to look younger than she is. Not to mention that Katana and Sindel are of a race called the Denians, and they are long-lived and age very slowly. To be fair, the movie doesn't mention that, but that's one complaint I don't have.
You're alive. Too bad you will die.
Wow, that's Shang Tsung levels of scenery chewing right there.
Your brother's soul is mine.
If she keeps that up, I might have to like her. Cue more bad green screen. Seriously, I've seen better green screening on YouTube. As Shao Kahn and Raiden swan dive towards each other, and they duke it out. Well, I guess if I was gonna complain about something in the first movie, it's that, as awesome as Raiden was, we never got to see him fight. Though he was portrayed as being such a badass that he basically never needed to. Raiden almost wins until one of Shao Kahn's lackeys throws him a whip and... Wow, the first thing Sonya does in this movie is get captured. Awesome. I mean, I hated when that happened in the first movie, but at least the writers got most of the way through that movie before getting lazy with her. In this one, it happens 5 minutes in. So Johnny Cage tries to step in, and we get to see his shadow kick. Which, by the way, was in the first movie, I just missed it. I think I thought that effect was caused by Scorpion's teleportation. So now Shao Kahn has Johnny instead.
Or this one dies.
Trade me for Johnny Cage.
Come bow at my feet.
And this is why Linden Ashby declined the role. They went, hey, want to play Johnny Cage again for like 5 minutes and say 2 lines? And he was rightfully like, fuck that, I got shit to do.
In 6 days, you will all bow to me!
So Shao Kahn makes his exit, and our heroes have to make a quick getaway because they are seriously outnumbered. Once they do, Raiden explains what's going on. It's kind of weird and has to do with Sindel having been resurrected. I guess she has the power to open that portal. But if Katana reunites with her, it'll break the spell that Shao Kahn has her under.
I beat Shang Tsung like I beat Khan.
If anyone's going to kill Khan, it's going to be me.
And now they're arguing about who is going to be the one to kill Shao Kahn. Okay guys, that was cute in the first movie.
I'm following him.
I work alone?
No, Shang Tsung is mine.
But you should really be past the bickering by now.
Enough!
So Raiden acts like a dad breaking up a fight among his kids and tells them that they aren't ready to face Shao Kahn yet. He also mentions that he has no powers in Outworld.
And as the two realms merge, I will lose my powers here on Earth.
That's awfully convenient for the plot and makes him seem like a pretty shitty demigod.
Each of you must grow stronger together.
Other than that, they kinda had this conversation in the first movie.
You must first face your fears, if you are to conquer them.
I guess these characters have learned nothing and have reverted back into being hotheads that need to be reined in so they don't get themselves killed. In fact, that's exactly what happened with Johnny. Remember the lesson he needed to learn in the first movie?
So you'll rush into any fight. You'll fight bravely enough, but foolishly, and you'll be beaten.
That is the first and last thing he does in this one. Like I said, nobody learned a damn thing.
Together, we couldn't even save Johnny.
Johnny died because he was stupid. Don't be stupid like Johnny.
Once inside the Velosphere, you can travel to anywhere on Earth in mere hours. The inner winds propel you.
So, using this silly contraption, Raiden plans to take Sonya to get Jax.
If I die, that's fine, but I am not losing anybody else.
Alone, you are vulnerable. But if you work together as a team, you can do much.
Again, she learned this lesson in the first movie.
If you are afraid to trust, you will lose.
Okay, originally it was because she was stubbornly independent, and here she's afraid of losing someone again, but how many times does Sonya need to be told no man is a fucking island until it finally sinks in?
What about us?
Meanwhile, Liu and Katana are going elsewhere.
Seek out the council of one called Nightwolf.
Translation, incoming cameo. And Raiden is going to talk to the Elder Gods, whoever they are, and demand answers for what Shao Kahn has done. You're enjoying this a little too much, Raiden. So the two groups each go off in their little sexual tension sphere. I literally cannot think of why else this contraption was designed this way.
Where are we?
The interchange, roll to your right, hard!
Yeah, that's practical. Back at Shao Kahn's castle.
Father, the merger has begun. Earth is under attack. And it is glorious!
Did you make Raiden beg for his life before destroying him?
Okay, I have to like Shao Kahn too. He's also really good at the scenery chewing. So, this guy is Shao Kahn's dad, Shinnok, who is actually a character in the games. I didn't know that until I looked it up.
He could not be stopped.
I have no use for excuses.
Anyway, he's mad that Shao Kahn is bragging about how he defeated Raiden, but didn't actually kill him, and warns him to be careful. Also, that they're going to be in trouble if the Elder Gods find out what they did. A little later, Katana and Liu Kang arrive at their destination. They start to have a little moment, but it's interrupted by smoke.
God!
That was some pretty unconvincing wire foo. So Liu Kang fights Smoke while Katana goes against like 4 lackeys. With Smoke being a cyborg, I'm not sure which is more impressive. Oh, come on, unfold the fans already. I know you're dying to. There they are. Enjoy this very brief look at Katana's signature weapon because we're never gonna see it again. Smoke fires an explosive projectile from his chest and is about to do it again when Sub-Zero motion tweens in and saves the day. Or he freezes Smoke so that Liu Kang can finish him off. Apparently the cold didn't affect the bomb.
You must go. There will be others.
You know what? This is getting off topic, but fuck it. It's my video and I'll talk about whatever I want. Meh. I hated Sub-Zero's character design in Mortal Kombat 3. Now, this is not the original Sub-Zero. He was killed off in Mortal Kombat. I'm talking about the games now. This is the younger brother of that guy, and they wanted to alter his design to set him apart from the other Sub-Zero. Which I get, but he goes from looking like a ninja to looking like a pro wrestler, and that's just way less cool looking to me. I'll give the movie credit for one thing, though. I originally was annoyed that they used the Mortal Kombat 3 design, but now that I'm looking at it again, even though they went the cheesy comic book route like they did with the other ninjas in this movie, at least they have him looking more like he did in Mortal Kombat 2, and he just takes his mask off, which is a lot less offensive to me. Anyway, just as in the games, this is the younger brother of the Sub-Zero from the first movie, and it turns out that Shao Kahn reprogrammed Smoke to go after Katana instead of Sub-Zero to stop her before she gets to Sindel. By the way, fun fact, the guy playing Sub-Zero here also played Reptile in the first movie, so the 3 actors you're seeing in this scene are the only ones who returned. Anyway, Katana mentions that they have a common enemy, so Sub-Zero should help them. So he creates a bridge of ice so they can progress. By the way, as much crap as I give this movie for disregarding the first one, because more often than not it does, there is actually a really subtle throwback to the first movie that you wouldn't catch unless you really paid attention. The music that plays here is the same music that plays when Scorpion attacks Johnny Cage in the forest. So this movie is subtly letting you know that Scorpion is about to show up. Now, it could just be this movie cutting corners again and reusing music, but it's still a neat effect for someone like me who loved the first movie. Anyway, Scorpion returns with an upgraded spear.
Get over here!
Yeah, that move was kind of pointless. You were already dodging the spear, and it's not like Scorpion would be fooled into thinking that's the real Sub-Zero. So, Pierce can rejoice, I guess, because we get to see Scorpion and Sub-Zero fight each other. So much for the bridge. This fight scene is technically well done. I'll have more to say about this movie's fight scenes in general later, but it's a little weird that the story has just totally stalled so these two can fight. Meanwhile, Liu Kang and Katana just kind of stand around going, duh, what do we do? Now do you guys get why the Scorpion and Sub-Zero arc was only hinted at in the first movie?
Deadliest of enemies, but slaves under my power.
It has nothing to do with our main character, so trying to shoehorn it in is kind of awkward. Scorpion just melted! Oh, that's his teleport move. It just looks totally different than in the first movie. And now here's Scorpion's take on people like me who actually paid money to see this movie in the theater.
Suckers!
Guilty as charged. You didn't have to rub it in, though. And now the teleportation looks different again. Insert Power Rangers reference about too much pink energy. Liu Kang wants to save Katana, but Sub-Zero supplies more talk about how he isn't ready for what's ahead. And that's the last we see or hear of Sub-Zero. Again, they tried to cram as many characters into this movie as possible, so get used to characters coming and going really quickly. Quantity over quality, basically.
You'll take the same track back and turn where I showed you.
Meanwhile, Raiden and Sonya have arrived at her headquarters so she can rescue Jax because Shao Kahn is sending his lackeys there.
Thought I was supposed to be rescuing you.
Yeah, well, I couldn't wait.
And it turns out that Jax just got his Mortal Kombat 3 arms.
Where you been anyway?
Going after Kano? I mean, that's what she was doing when you last saw her. Then again, you didn't really bother to help her, so maybe Kano wasn't that big of a priority for you. Hey, I never said the first movie was flawless, okay?
Yeah, now that's what I'm talking about.
I guess we now have our jive-talking black guy, because that's what the first movie was missing.
Wish I had these babies back in high school.
Okay, that was funny. Actually, kind of reminds me of something Johnny Cage said in the first movie.
I'm in a hostile environment. I am completely unprepared. I'm surrounded by people who probably want to kick my ass. It's like being back in high school.
And here comes Cyrax, one of my least favorite Mortal Kombat 3 characters because he felt like a replacement for Scorpion.
What the hell is that?
And more bombs. And now I just wish I was watching The Terminator. Jesus, there was a lot of glass in that room. I mean, you'd think that the Special Forces building would at least have bulletproof windows, or at least really strong plexiglass, or something that doesn't just shatter into millions of razor-sharp bits after someone just gives it a good tap.
Death is the only way out.
Okay, I've got to give him credit for having an awesome voice.
Shao Kahn will be pleased.
Anyway, Jax takes on Cyrax while Sonya fights the other guys. I will give this movie credit for one thing. The fight scenes are not bad. I don't think they're as creative and as much fun as they were in the first movie. Again, I feel like they're choosing quantity over quality because this is the second time we've seen two people fight off an army. But at least you can tell that the fighters know what they're doing and they don't do a bunch of quick cuts to hide things. Compare that to Catwoman, where you didn't even know that her fighting style was supposed to be capoeira unless you looked it up, because there's so much cutting between camera angles that you can never really see what's going on.
Yeah, now what?
Nah, she just hit him with a bedpan. I have to admit, that's a pretty impressive move. Okay, we didn't need to see the whole thing in slow motion, it's not that impressive. Anyway, a console catches on fire, and earlier a whole lot of powdered chemicals were spilled all over the floor. That was actually kind of a neat way to mimic Sonya's fatality from the first game.
Sonya wins.
So it turned out that Cyrax had a tattoo of some kind that looks like a dragon. Yeah, that just happened. And he's about to self-destruct, Predator style. Let me remind you that this is not some little fan film that was done on the cheap. This was a Hollywood summer blockbuster that was distributed by New Line Cinema. Really let that sink in. Well, this is getting long despite the fact that I'm barely a third into the movie. I'm gonna pick up the pace in part 2 though. This is not gonna be a 3-parter. No need to watch the movie first this time unless you want to, for some reason.